Line properties are a key concept and a required piece of information for any project transaction. Line properties can help define default information about a line within a business document and can help to control accounting requirements. Let's take a look at some of the features that you can define on a line property in Dynamics AX. Okay, so what you're seeing at the bottom of the screen is the line properties form, and on the left side you'll see the different line properties, and right now there's just billable and non-billable. If we start looking through the different fields, the two main groupings are there's shared settings within this form, and then there's some settings that are time and material specific. What we'll talk about first are some of the shared settings. So the first bullet says defines whether costs can be capitalized or not, and that's basically and I also said it excludes time and cost projects, but when you get into time and material or fixed price or investment type projects, you have the ability to capitalize costs upon posting a transaction. So if you remember back to the project group discussion, your project group can suggest whether you want to capitalize costs or post to the balance sheet or not. And if that is suggesting that you do capitalize costs and your line property says that you allow it by toggling this checkbox to yes, then you will capitalize costs. So there's two pieces, the project group and the line property, that come into play. So the next thing a line property can do is it adds markups to sales price or cost prices. So you can see there's a section called charges on hours, and basically what you can do is you can enter a percentage in either one of these fields, and whatever pricing you have set up within the pricing forms within the project management and accounting module, it will mark it up based on the percentages that you apply. And this is only applicable to hours type transactions. Okay, and then print settings, there's two of them. There's on invoice and on quote. We'll just talk towards the on quote. So if you have a line on your quote that basically has a zero cost price, do you want it to print on the quote or not? So if you have it toggled to yes, it will print with a zero value. If you toggle to no, it will skip that line. So then there's utilization functionality that the line property can depict. We'll get into utilization in the advanced modules, but basically you can define whether the labor is efficient and whether it's geared towards billable or efficient rates with the two checkboxes on the right side, or toggles on the right side. Okay, so then there's time and material specific settings. The primary one is the chargeable toggle. So when you're posting a transaction and you're defining a line property on that transaction, you can define whether it's chargeable or not, or billable to the customer or not. So if you have a line property and the chargeable checkbox is checked and you use that on a transaction, it is billable to the customer. All right, the next one is the accrue revenue toggle. So this goes back to the project group conversation. So if your project group is suggesting that you accrue revenue, when you go and try and post a transaction and define a line property, you're confirming that you allow the accrual of revenue if you have the checkbox checked to yes. If you have it checked to no, it will not allow an accrual when you post a project transaction. And then for time and material type projects, there's this print zero sales price on the invoice. So if you flag something as billable, but it has a $0 sales price, do you still want that to show up on your invoice? And you can either toggle this yes or no, depending if you want it to show up. Okay, those are some of the settings on the line property. Okay, so one other area that we need to talk about is the project group line properties form. And this is basically the form where you can define the default line properties. A lot of times you really don't even visit this form because you can define default line properties on a specific category or a project group or a specific project, and they just automatically get entered into this form that you're seeing at the bottom of the screen. But the two bullets that I want to talk towards are anytime you assign a default line property, the project group line property form is collecting that information. So that's just confirming what I previously mentioned, that when you add a default line property somewhere, it's collecting that information in this table or form. You can use this form to set up or modify additional line property defaults. So a lot of times on like a specific project, if you want to get more granular than just saying, hey, this project is always billable, well, maybe you have specific categories on that project that are billable and some that are not billable. Well, that's where you can go into this form and actually add all those different values. So the first thing that you're seeing when we look at this form is the valid for, and the valid for is for specific projects. So you can either set an all, a group, or a table level, and table always means a specific project, group means a group of projects in this instance, and all means all projects. And then the project relation would be what specific project or group you want to define. So you can see right here we have group defined, and then they defined a project group, and they said anytime that project group is used for all categories, you don't have to fill in anything here for all categories, it's just billable. So I mean, that really addresses the third and fourth column in this form. The valid for, that's the same thing, table, group, or all, and then the next field would be categories. So it's a table, group, or all for the specific categories, and then you define what your default line property is. All right, so we're going to go ahead and demonstrate creating a line property. So specifically, we'll walk through creating a line property, then we'll assign that line property to a transaction just to show you what that's doing. And then finally, we'll go in and assign a line property to a specific project category combination using the line property defaults form that we just previously discussed. All right, so we're going to go ahead and set up a line property. So the first thing that we're going to do is click on the hamburger to show the navigation pane, and then we'll navigate to the project management and accounting module, and then under setup we'll be at the line properties folder here, and you can see that there's two different menus within that folder. There's the line properties menu, and that's where you define or create your line properties, and then there's the project group line properties, and that's where you can go ahead and set up all your different default values for a project category combination. So I'll go ahead and click on the line properties menu, and it brings me in, and we can see that we have a billable line property and a non-billable line property. Those are probably the two most common values that you'll see within Dynamics AX, or maybe an alternate name would be chargeable or non-chargeable. So those are really what you see, because you want to define something as chargeable or non-chargeable when it comes to a time and material situation, and then your fixed price project can kind of piggyback off of those, just because it's going to be looking at the accrue revenue or sorry, the capitalized cost checkbox only, pretty much. So you really don't need to create duplicates, but if you want to, you can, and you can name them accordingly. Anyways, I'll just click the new button up on the top, and we'll call this chargeable OT. All right, and basically what we're going to do here is create an overtime line property, and we're going to be billing for the work, and this is geared towards time material. So we're going to say yes to chargeable, and then we're going to, if the project group is accruing revenue, we'll allow that with this line property, and then if the project group is suggesting that it wants to capitalize costs, we'll allow that as well. What we'll do is we'll mark our cost price up 10% and our sales price up 10%. So if somebody decides to use this line property, all pricing will be marked up 10%. And the rest of the checkboxes I'm not too worried about. Yeah, we'll say that it prints on an invoice if there's a zero price, and on a quote if it's has a zero price too. And the efficient stuff I'll leave alone, because we're going to talk about that later. Okay, so we will save that, and then basically what you can do is you can jump into a journal or any sort of other business document, and you can just create a new journal, go to the lines, and then when you add a new line to the journal, basically you do what you always do. You pick a project, define the category, and then notice that it defaulted in a line property, and ideally you want to have your line property defaulting in as much as possible so people don't have to worry about it. But if you do have situations where you want users putting in line properties or filling it out, that's where you wouldn't want to use the default, and you'll have to make them manually populate this, and this is a required field. So you can see in the drop down now I have billable, non-billable, and then I have my charge overtime. And if I hit my general tab, you're not, oh yeah, we do see the markup right away. So that's pretty nice. It dropped it right in there for us because my cost price is only $100 and my sales price must have been, not exactly sure what the sales price was, and we don't have to worry about backtracking on that. But we'll go ahead and just post this for the heck of it. And we'll jump into this project real quick, and we'll go to the Manage tab and then Posted Transactions. And that's crunching some information, so it's taking a second here. Okay, and where's my administrative? I must have picked a different one. Oh, no. Right here. So yeah, we can see that it got marked up 10% on each one of these, which is nice. So $200 on this one for the sales price and $100 for the cost amount, 10% on each. So that's very cool that you can mark things up like that. There's other ways of marking up cost prices and sales price too. You can use different categories labeled as overtime, etc. But that's just one of your options, is to use line properties. Okay, so if we really wanted to set up a specific combination for when a specific project category combination is billable or not, you can start from a project if you wanted to. So on this city manufacturing, notice that there's up on the project tab, there's the line properties button. This basically brings you to the form called project group line properties, and it shows any applicable ones that are for this project. If you wanted to add a new one in here, you can say new, and then it always defaults to a table level and automatically puts your project in there when you do it from a specific project. And then you can say for a specific category, such as, let's find something that makes sense. We don't bill for client training, so we'll flag that as non-billable work. But everything else looks like it defaults into billable, other than anything that falls in this project non-billable group. So now if I went back and tried to add this category to a journal, the training category, it should default in as a non-billable for this specific project. And just to show you, if we jump back to setup and then go to line properties, project group line properties, we should see our training value in here. And if you wanted to come into this form too and just say, yep, for that same project, 92, yikes, we will copy that value. There we go. And then for apprentice, we'll say that that's non-billable as well. You can add those in there. All right, that's what I wanted to show you, and I hope you understand line properties a little better.